How many games will the Baltimore Ravens win in 2025? What's going on, Ravens fans, as we call it, Flock Nation? It's your boy, Manuel Jones here. We back up with another NFL record prediction. And this time we'll be doing an NFL record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens for a 2025 NFL season, giving my game-by-game analysis and my thoughts, see which games I think the Ravens will win and which games I think the Ravens will lose. So before I give you my record prediction for the Baltimore Ravens for a 2025 NFL season, don't forget to put a thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options, and you can comment down your opinion below to see how far you think the Ravens will be. Do you think the Ravens will make the playoffs? Do you think they're going to miss out on the playoffs? Do you think they'll win the division? Or you think this is the time the Ravens can win the Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Now let's get things started here with Week 1 against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, primetime Sunday Night Football. Obviously, this is a game right here that can go either way. This will be a fun game to watch. This could also be the AFC Championship game and a playoff game. So basically, the game can go either way. I know both teams, are solid at the line of scrimmage. As a matter of fact, the Bills, they're at home in this game, and this could be the difference maker. As a matter of fact, the Ravens can match up really well with the Bills on paper, especially they can match the Bills' physicality. They can run the ball in Buffalo. Their defense can really give the Bills offense issues because we know they did that in the past, like a couple of years ago. I think it was last season in the regular season they did, but then in the rematch, I think the Bills did win that game. So yeah, so that's something you got to remember. So basically, the game can go either way. This game is in Buffalo on the Sunday Night Football primetime setting. This is going to be a fun game to watch. But I'm going to go with the Bills here to win this game because the Bills are at home. The Bills Mafia is a difference maker. I think the Bills can do enough to control the game, keep Lamar off the sidelines, and that's probably going to allow them to win the game. And I think Josh Allen can make some magic happening. And, the Ravens, in pass defense was really bad last season, so maybe Josh Allen can totally dice you up. But I feel like this game right here is going to be close and competitive, though. But at the same time, I think the Bills' offense gets it going, and I think they're defensively, with their new improved defensive line, adding Joey Bosa, is probably going to give Lamar Jackson issues, and I think they'll find a way to stop the Ravens' running game a lot better. And, don't forget, their secondary is solid, which I think they'll find a way to cover Zay Flowers and the other receivers. So, yeah, I can see this being a defensive game like it was before, but I think the Bills come out on top and win this game. Then Week 2 against the Cleveland Browns. I have nothing to say about this game. I ain't got a lot to say. I got the Ravens beating the Browns just because the Ravens are just the much more physical team, better quarterback, better coach. They're at home. I don't know who the Browns quarterback is going to be. I don't know who's going to be starting as the Browns quarterback. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders. It's going to be Dylan Gabriel. It's going to be Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett. I don't really know who their best option is at quarterback. Lamar has totally given the Browns a lot of issues, though. But the Browns do have a talented defense. But they're probably going to be worn out how bad their offense will be. So, that's going to lead to a Ravens win. Then Week 3, they got to play against the Lions. Another primetime setting on the Monday Night Football in Baltimore. I actually got the Ravens winning this game. Now, the Ravens did play the Lions really well like a couple seasons ago. I think it was like 2 seasons ago, I think. Was it? I think it was like two years ago. I think so, yeah. So, basically, the Ravens, 2 years ago, last time they played, the Ravens did dismantle them by a lot. Where the Lions offense, they couldn't get something going. The Lions are probably going to be adjusting with some new coordinators because they lost both of their coordinators. But the Lions do show some fight, though. But the Lions, they're offensively, they're talented. They can stay balanced. Defensively, they're really good. But at the same time, the Ravens do have a strong defense that can really give the Lions offense and Jared Goff tons of issues. So I think they'll do a good job stopping the Lions' run game. And their secondary solid, which I think they'll do enough to, cover against the Lions' receiving core and all that. So, yeah. And, sometimes – and don't forget, the Lions against mobile quarterbacks do struggle. in these environments. I mean, the Lions do struggle against mobile quarterbacks, so I feel like Lamar Jackson can totally dice them up, especially can dice the Lions secondary up. Especially the Lions like to play man a lot, which I think the Ravens offense does a really good job at beating man coverage. So yeah, I think the Ravens win this game. Then week 4 against Kansas City Chiefs. This is another game that can go either way. Now, most people could be picking the Ravens to get revenge on the Chiefs because the Chiefs have beaten them so many times. But I'm just going to go ahead and just pick the Chiefs to win just because I haven't really seen the Ravens beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead before. And I just need to see it before I believe it. And, and another reason why I'm going with the Chiefs to win this game is just because of the history. And, the Chiefs have beaten the Ravens so many times. And, the Chiefs probably might take a step back this year just because, they're dealing with Super Bowl hangover. And usually with teams with Super Bowl hangovers, they tend to at least take a step back this year. Take a step back. So, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs got some new pieces on the offensive line. Maybe the Ravens defense gives them issues. But the Ravens offensively can give the Chiefs defense some issues too because the Chiefs could totally struggle with Derrick Henry. They could struggle with the passing offense because sometimes the Chiefs on defense like to play so much man coverage. And Spags, he has done a really good job against Lamar in the past. He can do it again, especially the Chiefs do blitz a lot and they're very aggressive. And they're at home in this game. But I feel like Mahomes could totally dice up a Ravens secondary that has been bad against the pass last year. So maybe they get Rice going, maybe they get Worthy going, get Kelsey going. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to run the ball as much on the Ravens, but the Ravens may not be able to run the ball as much too. But I can see it as being a defensive game as well. But if this game is in Baltimore, I might lean towards the Ravens. But given that this game's in Kansas City, I'm going with the Chiefs. Then week 5, they play against the Houston Texans. I think they'll probably beat the Texans here. I mean, I just have a feeling that, the Texans, last year when these two teams play, it was on Christmas, and the Ravens did dismantle them, which that was totally the worst performance that the Texans have played, especially how bad their defense has played. I feel like the Texans defense is really good. It's probably going to be much better coming in 2025 season. But the Texans have great receivers. But the weakness of the Texans is just their offensive line and overpowering teams. I mean, this is a chance that they can keep this game close. But if the Ravens, if they can get up early, they can blow the Texans out because they did that before. I just don't really think the Texans offensively are going to be able to move the ball on the Ravens because the Ravens defense is so strong and they can give CJ Stroud tons of fits. And their secondary is pretty solid, which they can with their cornerback group, they'll find a way to at least cover against the Texans receivers. So as long as they can cover Nico Collins, I mean, you should be fine. So yeah, I think the Ravens will win just because they're just overall more complete team and they're at home in this game. So I think the Ravens will win. Next game, week 6 against the Los Angeles Rams. This is another game that can go either way. Now, most people could be picking the Rams to win because the Rams are very physical. I mean, their offense is very explosive. Their offensive line solid. They got great weaponry. They got a good quarterback, a great coaching staff, especially their pass rush is really good. So it could be their defense could be better, but their secondary is totally suspect, which they don't really have any cornerbacks, which that's where I'm a little bit concerned of. But I think with the Rams, they don't like to play man, they like to play zone because their cornerback group is kind of weak. So basically, the Rams defense could totally get exposed in that. But the Rams pass rush can totally give the Ravens offense issues. But the Rams could be good against a run, but against a pass, they're not. But this is tough, though. It can go either way. I think it will be a fun game to watch. I feel like this could be close. But at this end of the day, I'm going with the Ravens here to win this game. And the reason why I'm going with the Ravens is because I just think the Ravens are just you know, I just feel like, the Rams cornerback group against the weaponry of the Ravens on offense that they have is totally a mismatch. And I just don't really think the Rams really have the corners to at least like slow them down. I feel like Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Andrews, and Bateman would be a problem because I don't think the Rams secondary will have an answer for that. So yeah, because I feel like if the Rams can get a pass rush on Lamar, I think they can find a way to win. But at the same time, the Ravens offensively can stay balanced and run the ball. You know, I think, the defense of the Ravens can totally give Stafford some fits. They can, because the Ravens can stop the run. I feel like they'll find a way to at least like stop their running game, get a pass rush on Matthew Stafford, force him into mistakes, and then the Ravens do have the corners to match up well with the Rams receiving core. So as long as they can cover Devontae Adams and Nakua, they should be fine. So yeah, I think the Ravens will win that game in close fashion. But it would be fun though. But I think the Ravens offensively can find a way to control the game, keep Stafford on the sideline, and all that. So yeah. Then you head into the bye week. Then after the bye week, they have to play against Chicago Bears. Obviously, I think the Ravens will beat the Bears because they're going to be well rested. They're coming off a bye, which they have extra week to prepare. I think the Ravens, they're just the much more physical team and have the better quarterback, better coaching staff. They're at home in this game. The Bears, I feel like they're going to be a good team this year, but they're going to be dealing with some learning curves with the new head coach. Um, I don't know if Caleb's is going to – I don't really know. Caleb's entering year 2. I just don't know if Caleb is close to being average, close to being good, but I know he's not elite anything. So, yeah, that's something you got to know of. But at the same time, the Bears' offensive line improved. Their defense is solid, but I don't think it's as good as the Ravens. So, especially Caleb on the road in Baltimore is tricky, especially against a great defense like the Ravens. I feel like they're going to give the Bears offense a lot of problems. And, the Bears defense is soft at times. Maybe the Ravens offense can totally like move the ball on them and all that. Especially they can run the ball, throw the ball at them against their secondary. But if the Ravens can get up early in this game, they could totally blow the Bears out. So yeah. So basically, I think the Ravens find a way to win this game. But I don't really know if the Bears can hang around this game. But if Caleb can play well, I think they can hang around. So yeah, I think the Ravens will win. Week 9 against the Miami Dolphins on a Thursday night short week. In Miami, it's kind of tricky because it could be warm there. But at the same time, I mean, I know a couple years ago when these two teams played, the Dolphins did beat them with Brian Flores. But now they don't got Brian Flores anymore. So, yeah. But you know what? I'm taking the Ravens to win this game because I think the Ravens are just the much more physical team. They have the better quarterback. They have the better coach. And at the top of that, I just really think that, the Dolphins, they're a fast offense, but they're kind of a little flawed this year. Like, their offensive line is not as going to be good as it used to be after losing Teron Armstead. Their defense, it's just going to be up and down. Like, their secondary is not going to be anything special when they lose Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they lost some guys in secondary. And, Miami's taking a step. I feel like they're just going to take a step back this year. Like, I don't think they're going to be anything special this year. So I think the Ravens, offensively, they should be able to stay balanced, move the ball on them. I feel like they're just going to overpower the Dolphins, and especially on offense. Like, the Dolphins secondary is not going to have an answer for Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, D Hop, Bateman. Like, yeah, those guys are just going to be too much for the Dolphins secondary to handle. Like, Lamar's just too much for the Dolphins defense. So I think you should be able to move the ball against them. And I feel like their defense is just way better than the Dolphins because the Dolphins aren't really good against overpowering teams. So I think, the Ravens defense can get a pass rush on Tua, make life difficult on him. But I kind of remember in the past they did dismantle the Dolphins before and they rattled Tua and all that. And also their secondary is much better. They have a better cornerback group, which I think they'll find a way to like match it with the Dolphins receivers and slow them down. So I feel like as long as you can cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I feel like you should be fine. So basically, I feel like this could be close if the Dolphins, find a way to like pick up a rhythm and hang around, which I can see it happening though. But yeah, but I feel like if the Ravens get up early in this game, like they did before, they could blow the Dolphins out. So yeah. Then next game, Week 10 against the Minnesota Vikings. This is a tricky game. Now Minnesota is kind of a tough place to play at. They have a great offensive line that's much improved. They have a solid defense, excluding their defensive line that's solid. Maybe they can give the Ravens offense tons of problems, but their secondary is pretty suspect. There they got great weaponry. I'm not sure about JJ McCarthy's status though. Now this could be my trap game of the week. Now I know most people could be picking the Vikings to win because they're at home in this game, and Brian Flores can totally the Vikings defense can totally give Lamar some issues because I kind of remember when Flores was in Miami, he found a way to like confuse Lamar Jackson. Because I kind of feel like if they blitz Lamar Jackson too much, they'll be in trouble. But at the same time, I know it's in Minnesota, but I'm gonna go with the Ravens here just because I just think the Ravens are just a much more physical team, have the better quarterback, and I just don't know how good JJ McCarthy's gonna be. Especially he's playing against one of the best defenses in the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens defense can totally give JJ McCarthy some issues and make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Because I feel like that the Ravens also offensively can really get after that secondary of the Vikings. Because I feel like if Flores tries to blitz too much, I think Lamar can make him pay because Lamar is really good at deciphering the blitzes, on know where he needs to go with the ball and all that. So yeah, so basically, I know the game's in Minnesota, but I just have a feeling that the Ravens are just a much more physical team. But it will be close. I feel like it's going to be a defensive game, but I feel like it will be close. But I think the Ravens come out on top. So basically, they're on a 5-game winning streak so far. Then week 11 against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, you could sweep the Browns though, but I'm just going to take the Browns, to split the season series because at the end of the day, the Ravens always find ways to lose to Cleveland. Even with Jameis Winston, they beat them. They still lost to them. So yeah. So basically, the Browns sometimes play them tough though. And the Browns defense, they have given the Ravens offense some fits as well. So I'm taking the Browns here. Next game, week 12 against the New York Jets. They should easily beat the Jets. I mean, the Jets, they're just going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Justin Fields, I'm not a huge fan of. He's one of the worst starting quarterbacks as a pure passer. The offensive line is is not as good as it is. The defense is good, but it could totally take a step back. The Ravens, I feel like they have much more of a better defense, a much more better passing offense. I think the Ravens, their defense can find a way to at least like stop the Jets running game. And I don't think the Jets really have the passing game to get after that Ravens secondary. Because I think they can just cover Garrett Wilson, force the Jets to run the ball and all that. So yeah, I feel like, even though the Jets do have a really good secondary, I still think Lamar's just gonna pick them apart. So yeah, especially the Ravens are at home in this game and have the better quarterback, the better coaching staff, and they're just a much more physical team. So yeah, that's pretty much why. Then week 13 they play against the Bengals, and week 15. So it's like every other week they're playing against the Bengals. They played them on Thursday night, a short week on Thanksgiving. I'm just gonna say the Ravens are gonna win the first matchup because the Ravens typically own the Bengals, and I'm gonna say they just lose the second game to the Bengals just because the Bengals are probably gonna end their losing streak to the Ravens this year because I feel like the Ravens will split the Bengals this year because the Bengals could be a team that could totally make the playoffs so this year because the Ravens they should have never won both games. They should have won both games last year, especially with them giving a big play to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Burrow just picking the Ravens secondary apart. Yeah, but I I think the Ravens and Bengals will split this year. So yeah. The next game, week 14 against the Steelers. I actually got them beating the Steelers once this year. So they're at home in this game. The Ravens did beat them before. I think the Ravens will win this game because the Ravens totally play the Steelers tough, though. Especially the Ravens are at home. They have the better quarterback. And, I just think they're a much more physical team, even though the Steelers got Aaron Rodgers. I think the Steelers will be a good team this year, but I think the Ravens will win at home for the first game. Then week 16 against, the New England Patriots. I think they'll beat the Patriots because the Patriots, I just don't think their offensive line is going to be good enough to at least overpower the Ravens, especially their defense is solid. You know, I feel like, as long as they don't give up big plays to Stephon Diggs, I feel like they'll be fine in the secondary covering him. And then, as good as the Patriots defense is, I think Lamar Jackson is still going to pick him apart though, especially he will though. But I don't know if the Ravens going to be able to run the ball on them, but I think they'll be able to at least I don't see them overpowering them, but I think the Ravens, they can find a way to put up a good game plan against the Patriots defense. So yeah, especially the Ravens are at home in this game and have the better coaching staff, better quarterback. And I just think there's a much more physical team. And don't forget, bad offensive lines don't really travel well on the road, especially Drake May's probably going to be rattled here in this game, and he's probably not going to play well against this Ravens defense. Especially the Ravens are really good at blowing teams out. So if the Ravens can get up early in this game, they might blow the Patriots out. So yeah. The next game, week 17 against the Green Bay Packers on a Saturday though. This is kind of tricky though because going to Lambeau Field is a tough environment. You know, it could be snowing in this game. Who knows? Most people could be picking the Packers to win because they're at home, but I don't know. It can go either way, but I might come back to that one. And then week 18 against the Steelers, I think they'll split the Steelers, so I think they'll lose them once this year, like they always do. I think they'll lose to Pittsburgh because I feel like the Ravens might be resting their starters because, as we already know, they must have clinched a playoff berth, and the Steelers, have more to play for because they could be a team that they might make the playoffs or they could barely miss it. So yeah. So right now I have the Ravens at 11-5-1. So I think if they lose to the Packers, I feel like they'll be 11-6. But at the same time, I know it's in Green Bay and it could be weather dependent on. And the Packers are really good in the snow. But despite the weather environment, I lean Ravens to win this game just because I think the Ravens, they're probably going to be I just think the Ravens, I just think the Ravens are a much more better complete team. And I think they're just a better version of the Packers because the Packers are like a young offense, but the pass rush is solid, but it's not anything special. But here's the thing. The Packers don't really play a simple, high, complex defense, which I think that's going to allow Lamar to sit back and pick apart that defense. And even without Jair Alexander, I feel like Zay Flowers, D Hop could be a problem. So yeah, but the Ravens, I feel like they can run the ball on the Packers. The Packers are a good running team, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball on the Ravens defense. I feel like the Ravens defense is solid. I feel like they can get after Jordan Love, make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and the Ravens, pretty much have a solid secondary that can really cover against the Packers' young receivers, and they can play sticky against an unwhelming receiving core of the Packers because I feel like the Packers receiving core is a little bit underwhelming, and Ravens just have a better receiving core, and I feel like Lamar is going to make more plays. But I feel like the only way the Packers win this game is that they can control the game, have an offensive game plan, keep Lamar off the sidelines and all that. But I think the Ravens will win because I think they'll find a way to control the game offensively, keep Jordan Love off the field, and that will allow them to sustain the drive. So I think the Ravens, I know it's in Green Bay, but I just feel like the Ravens are going to win because they're just a much more physical team. So yeah. So basically, I have the Ravens at 12-5, which that's pretty much good enough to win a division, make the playoffs. So yeah, 12-5 is pretty good enough to make the playoffs. So basically, as you look at the Ravens schedule, it could be much difficult because, they have to play the Bills, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Rams. I mean, they play a first place schedule, and they got to play the Vikings, the Bengals twice, the Steelers twice, the Lions, and the Packers. So, yeah, so that's a pretty difficult schedule for the Ravens. Like I said, 12-5 should be good enough to win division, and I feel like they will beat either the 2 seed or 3 seed depending on what the Chiefs and Texans do. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, if you disagree with me, just let me know in the comments section below what you guys think, about the Ravens and all this. So, yeah, this is Emmanuel Jones for Big Fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more of my videos for more options, you can. So, yeah, this is Emmanuel Jones for Big Fan. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.